What's up, YouTube? Zero here, and today I have an absolutely amazing Jumpluff, Druddigon and Zangoose deck in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll talk about each of these cards individually, and I'll talk about why this deck works so well as a whole, and why you should be checking it out. Before I get into it, I do want to say, as always, if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. Thank you so much in advance for doing so. I do other video games if you're interested in it. Borderlands 4 is coming out soon, so be on the lookout for videos of that if you are interested in Borderlands 4. Without further ado, time to talk about this deck. And Jumpluff is going to be the star of the deck. However, the other cards in this deck do work really well. It's not going to be the only reason why you win. There are multiple ways to win with this deck, which is one of the reasons why I put it together. There are some decks I put together that you only have one way of winning. You get one Pokemon that you really need, you get it out there as quickly as possible, and you start attacking. However, this deck isn't like that. It's really fun to get Jumpluff out there attacking and retreating, but it's not the only way to win. Let's talk about Jumpluff EX though. Its attack is awesome. It's Breeze By attack. That's what it's called. It deals 70 damage for only one colorless energy. On top of that, you just saw on the screen, it asked me a question. And the question was, do you want to retreat this Pokemon to the bench? Because Breeze By attack, you may switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon after you attack. So you can deal 70 damage and then switch Jumpluff EX to the bench, putting another Pokemon into that active slot. That's really awesome because you can prevent a lot of damage off of Jumpluff EX. It has 160 HP, so that's no joke either. It's going to be very hard and very frustrating for your opponent to KO your Jumpluff EX, and that's really nice because, of course, being an EX Pokemon, you lose 2 points if Jumpluff goes down. So you can get out there in the active slot, and for only one colorless energy, you're attacking for 70 and then moving to the bench. And that's why it pairs really well with Druddigon and Zangoose that I'm going to talk about in a second. First, I do want to mention that Jumpluff EX can be found in the Secluded Springs packs that were just released. But now let's talk about Druddigon. Druddigon has been around for a while now in Pokemon TCG Pocket. It was released in the Mythical Island pack. So if you're looking for Druddigon, head to those Mythical Island packs and you have a chance of unlocking Druddigon. It was a staple for a very long time after those Mythical Island packs released because of Druddigon's ability, Rough Skin. Now, Rough Skin is essentially a rocky helmet. If Druddigon is in the active spot and damaged by an attack, you do 20 damage to the attacking Pokemon. So that's going to be pretty nice. If you utilize your Jumpluff, you retreat to the bench, you put your Druddigon in that active spot. If your opponent's Pokemon attacks you with an attack, they're going to take 20 damage. So on top of your Jumpluff dealing 70 damage, they're going to take 20 from your Druddigon, which is really nice. Druddigon also has an attack, Dragon Claw, for 3 energy, 1 fire, 1 water, and 1 colorless, has Dragon Claw for 90 damage. So as you can see in this deck, I'm running both fire and water energy. Of course, Jumpluff EX is 1 colorless energy, so you're not going to have to worry about what energy you're pulling. Jumpluff is going to be pretty easy to get in that active slot and ready to go, which is going to be really nice. You don't have to worry about the energy pulling, so you can have whatever energy combined with Jumpluff that you want. So pairing Druddigon with Jumpluff is going to be nice because you can put both fire and water energy in your deck, and you have the potential of getting Druddigon online and attacking. And what can be nice about Druddigon is if you do get those 3 energy on it, you can hit for 90 damage. So that's going to be more than Jumpluff if you do need a little bit of extra oomph. If you need a little bit of extra damage, you're going to have Druddigon ready to go. So I love pairing Druddigon with Jumpluff because not only can it provide a shield, You can get it into that active slot, deal 20 damage whenever your opponent is attacking you, but you also have the potential to build up energy on it and attack for Dragon Claw. So that's going to be nice as well, that you can deal a little bit of extra damage if you don't want to or don't need to attack with Jumpluff, or you just need that extra damage from Druddigon. It can be there. So I love having Druddigon paired up with Jumpluff. And again, what's nice about Jumpluff is it's one energy. You don't have to worry about utilizing energy on Druddigon because it's going to be very easy to get energy on Jumpluff and attacking. Next, let's talk about Zangoose, because Zangoose is another Pokemon that pairs very well with Jumpluff EX. And you're going to see that in this clip where I'm able to take out a Giratina EX Darkrai EX deck. One of the most popular and one of the best decks in the meta right now. Still one of the best decks, the Giratina EX Darkrai EX deck. And I'm able to defeat it with the combination of Jumpluff EX and Zangoose. Zangoose is another great pairing when it comes to pairing it with Jumpluff EX. And that's because, like Druddigon, it has an ability that does 20 damage to your opponent's attacking Pokemon. Zangoose has the ability Counterattack. So if the Pokemon is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, you do 20 damage to the attacking Pokemon. So regardless of if you're jumping back with Breeze by attack from Jumpluff and putting the Zangoose in the active spot, or putting the Druddigon in the active spot, you're going to be dealing 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon if they attack you with an attack. So that's pretty nice, dealing the extra 20 damage. You pair it up with Jumpluff. Jumpluff deals 70, your opponent attacks either your Zangoose or your Druddigon, and it's up to 90 damage, which is going to be really nice. 90 damage on multiple turns is going to KO a lot of Pokemon in about 2 turns. Zangoose also has an attack slash. For 2 colorless energy, you deal 50 damage. So having the fire and water energy again isn't going to affect Zangoose. Having the fire and water energy is going to be nice because you can get Druddigon online, but Zangoose and Jumpluff don't care what energy is in the deck because both of them are working with colorless energy. So it's not going to matter. So having Zangoose in this deck is going to be nice as well. It gives you another wall in front of Jumpluff if you need it, or when you do want to jump to the bench, or when you're building up, you're trying to get Jumpluff out of your deck onto the playing field. Zangoose is going to be nice out there as well because you can deal that 20 damage from Counterattack. And Zangoose is going to be found in those Secluded Springs packs. Next, I have to briefly talk about Hoppip because, of course, you need to evolve into Jumpluff. Now, Hoppip is the basic in the evolution line of Jumpluff. Hoppip for 1 colorless energy, splash, deals 10 damage. That's going to be found in the Secluded Springs packs. And of course, because I am foregoing the stage 1 of the evolutionary line, you need 2 rare candies in this deck. For those of you who don't know, rare candy just allows you, if you have a couple of stage Pokemon, to skip the stage 1. So if you've had, in this case, Hoppip on the playing field for at least 1 turn, and you have Jumpluff and Rare Candy in your hand, you can skip the stage 1, evolving right into Jumpluff. So I do like Rare Candy with a lot of decks with a lot of my stage 2 Pokemon, because you can skip the stage 1, not have to worry about evolving, waiting a turn, and then evolving again. It allows you just to get right into your stage 2. And Rare Candy is going to be found in the Celestial Guardians packs. Next, I want to talk about Elemental Switch. Elemental Switch can be phenomenal for this deck. Now, Elemental Switch, you can move a fire, water, or electric energy. Of course, in this case, it's going to be either fire or water, from one of your benched Pokemon to your active slot. Now, I mentioned earlier, Druddigon requires a fire and a water energy on top of a colorless, so 3 energy, to attack with Dragon Claw for 90 damage. Well, let's say your Jumpluff jumps to the bench, and it has an energy that your Druddigon may need. Maybe you have 2 water energy on your Druddigon, and your Jumpluff has a fire energy. Well, if you want, you can utilize Elemental Switch if you have a water energy in your energy zone coming up, you can utilize Elemental Switch to take that fire energy, move it to your Druddigon. You can equip the water energy from the energy zone onto your Jumpluff and allow it to still have an energy. And then you're going to be able to attack with Druddigon for 90 damage. So you're going to be able to do a little bit more damage with Druddigon. You're not going to have to worry about retreating because it's dealing more damage. And you can attack with Druddigon for the extra damage, the 90 damage. And you're still going to have it in the active spot for Rough Skin. Again, Druddigon is not an EX Pokemon, so as long as your opponent doesn't have 2 points already, it's not going to hurt to lose your Druddigon out of that active spot, but at least you can deal a little bit more damage. You're going to deal the 90 damage and then the extra 20 from Rough Skin. So you can potentially utilize Elemental Switch in this deck to take whatever energy you need off of either your Zangoose or your Jumpluff and attach it to your Druddigon, so your Druddigon can have the energy it needs to attack for Dragon Claw. So I love Elemental Switch in this deck for that reason. Sometimes you might whiff on getting a certain energy that you need for your Druddigon, but if one of your other Pokemon that you had on the playing field earlier in the match had one of those energies that you need, you can utilize Elemental Switch for the Druddigon, which is absolutely awesome. It's going to really help this deck out and really help Druddigon get going and deal that extra damage. So I love Elemental Switch in this deck. An Elemental Switch is going to be found in the Wisdom of Sea and Sky Lugia packs. Next, couple of cards that are in a lot of decks. Professor's Research allows you to draw 2 cards. Pokeball allows you to draw a random basic Pokemon from your deck to your hand. Those two are pretty obvious. Getting all of the cards out of your deck that you need as quickly as possible. Next, let's talk about the remaining support cards in this deck. First, I'll talk about the Cyrus because I do have 2 Cyruses in this deck. I have 1 Sabrina and 1 Irida. Cyrus is going to be an obvious. Cyrus, you switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it to the active spot. This deck is not going to be dealing one-hit KO type damage. You're going to be chipping away at your opponents. As you can see, I'm facing a Charizard EX in the active slot that has 200 HP. There are a lot of other Pokemon in the game. You can see my opponent on their bench has a Ho-Oh that has 150 HP, a Moltres that has 140 HP. I don't have Pokemon that are going to one-hit KO a lot of extremely powerful Pokemon. In this deck is Pokemon that are going to start dealing chip damage. You're going to deal 70 damage real quick. You're going to deal that extra 20 damage from counterattack from Zangoose or the Rough Skin 20 damage. Maybe you're going to get enough energy on your Druddigon to deal 90 damage. Or you're going to hit with 50 from your Zangoose. You're going to be dealing a lot of chip damage. What's nice is when you do lose Pokemon, like losing the Zangoose, you're only going to give up 1 point. So it's not going to be the worst thing in the world giving up a point because Jumpluff, the only EX Pokemon in this deck, can get to the active slot, deal damage, and then retreat to the bench. So it's not going to be the worst thing in the world because you're most likely not going to lose your Jumpluff pretty easily. You're going to lose the other Pokemon. But you're going to be dealing a lot of chip damage. This is going to allow your opponent to retreat their Pokemon to the bench that have damage on it relatively easily because you're not going to be taking them out with one hit. They're going to retreat. They're going to try and save their points. Cyrus isn't going to let them do that. Cyrus, you switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that has damage on it to the active spot. So after you deal that chip damage, your opponent retreats their Pokemon to the bench in hopes of saving that Pokemon so they don't lose the points. Cyrus isn't going to allow them to do that. So Cyrus is critical in this deck. That's why I have 2 of them. And Cyrus is going to be found in the Space-Time Smackdown Palkia packs. Next, Sabrina. Sabrina I've mentioned in all of my videos, and if you're back for another video, thank you so much for returning. Sabrina is a phenomenal card. Y'all have probably heard me talk about it a million times over because it's one of my favorite cards. It's a phenomenal card, can really do a lot in terms of disrupting your opponent, making your opponent change their strategy, forcing a Pokemon from the bench that has a high retreat cost into the active slot, or forcing a Pokemon on that bench that your opponent doesn't want in the active slot, or forcing a Pokemon out of that active slot that you just don't want to deal with. It can do a lot, but it's a phenomenal card. So it can do a lot. Of course, you switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. Your opponent gets to choose the new active Pokemon, but it's a really phenomenal card, can really disrupt your opponent's strategies, which is why I love it in pretty much every deck I run. So I do have one here, and it's going to be found in the Genetic Apex Charizard packs. Last but not least, Irida. Irida is really nice for this deck because I'm running Water Energy. Now, Irida, for those of you who don't know, you heal 40 damage from each of your Pokemon that has any Water Energy attached to it. Running Water Energy in a deck is going to allow for you to heal up with Irida all of the Pokemon that have Water Energy attached to it. So this is going to frustrate your opponent. If they've been dealing some chip damage on Zangoose or Druddigon, you can heal up both of them at the same time if they have Water Energy attached. It's going to make it harder for your opponent to take out both of these Pokemon, and then you can deal that chip damage from counterattack, and you can deal that chip damage from Rough Skin. So I do love Irida in this deck. It's going to make it a lot harder for your opponent to take out your Pokemon in this deck. So it's a phenomenal card to have, and it can be found in the Triumphant Light packs. I absolutely love this deck. It's a really fun deck and can really compete with some of the best decks in the game. You saw in the first clip, I was able to take out a Giratina Darkrai deck, which is still one of the best decks in the game. So being able to do that says this deck can hang with the big dogs. It's a really fun deck. Jumpluff is a really fun card, going to make it hard for your opponent to take out your EX card, which means they're going to have to take out 3 Pokemon. And trying to take out the other Pokemon in this deck, whether it's Zangoose, whether it's Druddigon, is going to cost them. It's going to cost them 20 from Rough Skin, or it's going to cost them 20 HP from Counterattack. So both of these Pokemon work really well with Jumpluff. Being able to run the multiple energy also means that Druddigon can attack. This is going to provide a little bit more damage. It can attack for 90, plus Rough Skin is going to deal 110 damage, which is always going to be welcome, of course. I'm just going to go back to Giratina since it's one of the best cards in the game. Giratina, 150 HP. If you hit with Druddigon, that's 90. Giratina attacks you, of course, it is going to be able to KO you since it deals 130 damage. But it does 20 damage to itself, and it's also going to take 20 damage from Rough Skin. So that's going to be almost KOing itself just to take out a Druddigon, which is going to be awesome. It's really going to make your opponent hesitate to attack you. But really, they may have no choice, especially if your Druddigon is powered up. So it's going to be a lot harder for some of those Pokemon, some of your opponents, to attack you when you're able to deal that extra 20 damage from your abilities. So it's really nice, and Jumpluff can hide on the bench, jump to the active spot, attack for just 1 colorless energy, and then jump back. And you can keep repeating that, and it's really going to frustrate your opponents. It's a really fun deck and can really compete with some of the best. Let me know in the comments section what you think about this deck. Have you run something similar? Are there cards that you would switch in or out to make this deck even better? Let me know in the comments section. I definitely can see a couple of switches in this deck. I like this deck the way it is, though. I've had a lot of fun. Of course, you can always switch around the amount of supporter cards that you have. I prefer running with 2 Cyruses because your opponent can find it really easy to retreat Pokemon, but you may switch out one of the Cyruses for an Irida or another Sabrina. Whatever you want, let me know what you think in the comments section, how you'd play it with this deck. If there's a Pokemon you'd like to see a deck of, let me know in the comments section and I'll get it done. Thanks for checking out this video. Feel free to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and until next time, peace.